Listen up, Gotham.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hiya, Buttons. It's me, Harley Quinn.
This is Batman.
This is Robin.
Tune into the Bat Fanatic podcast.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast with Sammy Warmhands.
With Sammy Warmhands.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast. Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
Although, Sam, you might think about changing the name.
Hey everybody, it's the Dark Knight of Rap, Sammy Warmhands, and this is the Bat Fanatic Podcast. That's right, the most consistently inconsistent show, because when we take a break, my God, it is hard to get back on schedule. I was out of town making a record in Orange County, and then the next weekend I was in Portland doing a con, and then 2 weeks later I was in Orlando doing a con, as was Dave, and then me and Dave did 2 shows on his podcast, the Everything Batman podcast, about that con. So you can go to the Bat Force YouTube channel and check those out. It's the Everything Batman podcast. And then after that, I got COVID. So my God, things are backed up. But hey, shout out to our friend the Nando Knight. We are back in the Christopher Reeve universe. This is Superman 2, the Donner Cut. I wanted to start with Gramps because I know your all-time favorite book, as you've said, the only Batman book that exists.
That I've ever read.
Yeah, is Dark Knight Returns. So I wanted to just share this piece because it is your favorite mixed with your least favorite. Did you see this that I posted? The Batgirl Dark Knight of Burnside?
I just kept scrolling.
You son of a bitch.
Spent money on that shit.
I did. I love it. Crease Lee. Well, I thought I'd get a better reaction than that, but...
No, you're getting zero reaction.
Okay, fine.
Congratulations.
I thought it was dope.
You know why? Because it is. That's why.
Now, make her an old woman, and I'm interested.
What?
Bat Grandma? Yeah.
You know, it's too bad you weren't here for Catwoman Lonely City. That'd be right up your alley.
Bat Grandma?
We had old-ass Babs in that one.
Yeah.
Old ass Babs.
That is a great book, though.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, I've only read the first 2 issues. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to buy the hardcover of this.
Yeah, it's worth it. And there's a really cool retailer exclusive of the hardcover.
I told you I went to Half Price Books to try to sell the Batgirl book and all of James Tynion's run on Detective Comics, thinking, okay, this will pay for a $7 movie.
I have to be a classic Sammy here and say it's actually Tynan.
Tyrion.
Yes. Yes.
They wanted to give me like $3 for like, I've probably spent the equivalent of $90 on these trades.
Yeah.
Welcome to GameStop.
Yeah, man. Trade-ins are tough, dude.
My point being, they have a hardcover of Catwoman Lonely City or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Half Price Books, right?
Right.
You would think that it would cost half the cover price.
You would think.
No, they've doubled it.
Really? It's like a $60 book?
Yeah. I'm like, what's the logic here?
It might have been off air, but I had the same experience with my first order from In Stock Trades. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, they've got great deals, really excited. Got all these absolute editions, and it took 3+ weeks for those to show up. I'm like, it says In Stock in the name, man.
I know.
Shit, my shit.
All right, so today we are doing Superman 2, the Donner Cut from 2006, I believe. This was right around the same time as Superman Returns. It is directed by Richard Donner, written by Mario Puzo, David and Leslie Newman, as well as Tom Mankiewicz, who was not properly credited. He got like a consultation credit or something for his writing. Starring Gene Hackman, Christopher Reeve, Marlon Brando. Those are the marquee names in the intro, but huge cast, of course. Ned Beatty, Jackie Cooper, Sarah Douglas, Margot Kidder, Jack O'Halloran, Valerie Perrin, and Terrence Stamp. Our main villain is actually credited 13th. I know people will get the extra, like, with John Lithgow and John Goodman or something like that. You know, if they have a smaller part and they're a significant actor, they might negotiate to get a special thing like that, but for him to just be like after 10,000 names, I'm like, God damn, when is he going to show up?
is that really a thing?
Uh-huh.
You negotiate what order your name is. I know, like, Nicholson wanted top billing in 89 Batman.
Yeah, and that's why Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando are credited above Chris Reeve in the first one.
When you see, like, the roll of names and then you see that and then someone's...
It'll sometimes say, with Slam Dunk Dave and Gramps.
Yeah, what's the difference when it says with or and? Is that like a pay cut difference?
I'm not sure. I just know that they will negotiate to get those special mentions that are kind of aside from just a list of names. You know what I'm saying? So if they're a notable actor playing a small part, you know, so long as it's not like one of those uncredited cameos, I've definitely seen that in a lot of movies. Just something I've observed. Last of this is composed by John Williams, which we were deprived of in the theatrical because he and much of the crew resigned when Dick Donner was kicked off the sequel. And you may notice this was dedicated to Christopher Reeve because, again, this came out finally in the 2000s after he had passed. So we have already reviewed Superman 2. This is the original Snyder cut, so to speak. It opens with the same footage from Superman the movie, where Jor-El sentences Zod and his whole crew to the Phantom Zone. We see them float off into space just as Baby Kal-El's escape pod soars past them towards Earth.
Now that's a different edit right there.
Yeah, they're all different edits. I just mean that this is,
plot-wise,
in a similar way, giving us a recap from the first film.
Yeah, I actually just finished watching the theatrical cut just to have an A-B comparison.
Yeah, I didn't watch it again, but I did read my notes again.
I watched it just so I could come prepared and have it fresh on my mind to know, okay, yeah, here are the subtle differences. Because even in certain little scenes like that, it's a subtle difference, but it is a different edit because you actually see Baby Kal-El's spaceship go past the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
In the Donner cut. And that wasn't there before, so.
And also we see the baby Dick, which is Dunk's favorite part. I know when he said he wanted to watch this a couple of times, that was probably why.
It was so shocking the first time. I just continued shocking myself.
Your heart stopped and you fainted, you know.
I was going, no.
What do you think that kid thinks now?
You know, the Nirvana baby tried to sue them, which is weird
he
because he
did.
had like, oh, I guess you didn't make enough from the fame of it, so you got to get your money some other way.
Yeah.
But this is something I kind of have to accept. The superhero genre is very much in its infancy, and I guess they just felt it necessary to play catch up with the audience. This is one of the only times I will admit that I kind of prefer the Richard Lester version in that it was integrated into the opening credits.
Yeah.
They show less of the first film, but I wish they kind of just rolled it into the credits and we didn't have to watch all that again.
Well, all that editing and sequencing takes budget money. And as you saw in the DVD extras about how it was all brought together, they had a budget that WB would say, okay, we'll let you do it.
Yeah.
But you're going to stay under this. They got to add some special effects and some
we'll get to some of that.
but they weren't going to go way overboard.
Yeah, this was a straight to DVD release.
Right.
This was very much a outpouring of demand from the fans. Again, kind of coinciding with Superman Returns and capitalizing on that moment. I think that without that movie, this might not exist. But what we do gain here in the beginning is seeing Superman push the nuke into space and the fallout destroys the Phantom Zone, setting free its prisoners, which I much prefer to the Eiffel Tower rewrite because there's so much plot involved in just making that one little thing happen.
Yeah, and I mean, even though in the theatrical version he pushes the bomb into outer space, there's no way that bomb in the Eiffel Tower 1 could have been like a nuclear bomb. It wasn't that big. I like how it directly ties in Lex Luthor with bringing the Kryptonians here.
Yeah.
Even says it in think it was when they were in the Fortress of Solitude, and he was like, my bomb is what set them free. He said something like, even when I lose, I win.
Yeah. Well, the theatrical version didn't start proper for 9 minutes. This one actually starts at 12. We get all the recap and the kind of inciting incident with the Phantom Zone, and then the opening credits, and then the movie kind of starts. So if I'm to have any gripe, it's pretty much just the way the whole setup for the film happens. Again, I would love if that was just wrapped in and we had just a cold open of credits with the stuff. You know, we don't really need any of that. But at this point, we're at the Daily Planet. Lois looks at a newspaper photo of Superman and says, you know, Clark is never around when Superman's around. And she takes a marker to the photo. She's looking at him from across the room. She draws a hat and glasses and a business suit over the Superman photo in the newspaper. And she's got him from the first scene. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, one, it wasn't hard to imagine the likeness there. But yeah, she does a great job saying, you know what? What if we do this? And sure enough, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue. He looks obviously just like Clark Kent.
Yeah, and I like that they make her a little bit smarter.
Well, somewhat.
A little bit. You know, the first one, it was like, okay, yeah, she can't spell. She's maybe got those moments, right? But she's still a take no shit Lois Lane, which is great. And in this, it takes far less than the theatrical version for her to just figure it out.
Yeah, very straightforward, you know, and like right in the beginning.
Yes. And we are talking about a movie that we've already reviewed. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to gloss over certain things.
But this scene here, I mean, this is all new. This was not in the theatrical version.
Yeah, exactly. I just mean as we start to move into familiar territory, for example, Perry is calling them into the office and puts them on the newlywed scam story, right? And so we already know what that is. And here we get a different one-on-one conversation with Lois and Clark where she shows him the drawing,
right?
Calls him out, calls him Superman to his face. And what's great is before he can, you know, aw shucks his way out of the moment, she just says, and I bet my life on it, and jumps out the fucking window of a skyscraper.
And he's like, okay, I've already saved you once from this skyscraper fall. How many times do I have to do this? Because she already fell off the thing from the helicopter in the...
Right.
So he's like, here we go again.
But I like it because I feel like in the other one, they really tried to add a lot of extra interplay between the two of them, where again, this is a Lois that doesn't fuck around though. She's like, check it out, here's the proof, and he starts to backpedal a little bit and she's not listening, just like, nope, I'm gonna fall screaming now and you gotta catch me.
She wants her man. She's already had a taste of the super sweetness, and so she wants her man.
Yeah, I like it. There's no bullshit.
Yeah, there was like, I know who you are, you know I know,
right?
Let's stop fucking around.
Yeah, can we stop pretending?
She's just crazy at this point. I mean, she's just nuts.
I don't think so. I
Fly
mean, she's
away,
not,
Superman. This girl is nuts.
I mean, she's not wrong, though.
She's not wrong, but geez.
To back up Gramps, you don't jump off a fucking building. You don't jump out the window.
Psycho.
Stage 5, Virgin, Klinger. Let's go. I'm going to start the car. I'm serious. Let's go.
Fly away. Just get away from this girl.
So as she falls screaming, Clark races through the office down to the street in plain clothes, casually blows a wind strong enough to break her fall, uses heat vision to break open the awning above the front door of the building, and sneaks inside as she bounces off of it and onto her fruit vendor.
Embarrassing her at the same time. Classic move.
And then we get some composited test footage of Clark looking out the window from above, which I believe this was maybe a body double, and she looks up and sees him and like, but you're, you know, and faints in disbelief. Like, oh, God damn, I was wrong.
Yeah. She can look 20 floors up and tell.
Well, he was leaning out the window like, you okay down there, Lois? Oh, my God. You know?
Yeah.
Now we get Lex Luthor and Otis in the laundry room at prison. We've seen this before in a similar way. He's discussing the advanced radar technology that can track Superman's location up north. It's basically the same scene, though it does end with a bedwetting joke that I don't believe was there earlier. Then we get those astronauts and cosmonauts on the moon attacked by Ursa, Zod, and Non. Both the music and editing makes this scene a lot more threatening than when we saw it before. It was kind of comical. Luther's escape here is still goofy with the hot air balloon and all the stuff, but I felt like the moon attack was way more effective in this.
That's the one thing I noticed about the Donner cut is that in reading about the two, even Lester admitted that he wanted to make his version a little more lighthearted versus Donner. He wanted to show how terrible these Kryptons were. Kryptons. Is that the right word?
You're doing the Marlon Brando. Kryptonian.
Kryptonians. Kryptonians. He really wanted to show the savageness of these people.
Yeah, and to me it was like a person playing with an ant under a magnifying glass. Like there was just nothing to it when they killed these people, you know?
No, they were like testing out these powers that they just discovered. They're like, who are these little mice? And they're just playing with them like a cat with a mouse, and then just finally kicking them off the moon.
Yeah, they're kicking, man. I'm like, poor guys.
I know.
I think of the ghost one way. I'm like, damn, I got kicked.
Punted into the abyss.
Yeah.
Lois and Clark then arrive at Niagara Falls, and at the same time, Lex and Miss Tessmacher sneak into the Fortress of Solitude. And I think we get more of their actual, like, climbing in and discovery of the fortress here, which feels better to me.
This was like kind of a very James Bond move. The snowmobile transforms into like a hydroplane to cross the lake going to the Fortress of Solitude. They don't show that in the...
I didn't even appreciate that.
Oh, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's very cool. That's like James Bond.
Nice.
Because I don't think they have that in real life, but I noticed it wasn't there in the theatrical version. It was just like they rolled up and bam, they're right there at the front.
Suddenly inside, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is it just me or does Jor-El look different in certain shots here? Like, is this always Brando?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because at first we get a full figure hologram, and then gradually it crops to the bust, and then it crops to just the floating head again, and we're getting all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, this looks a little different than before. And it again sets up the villains as Jor-El recaps their story one more time with Zod and the Phantom Zone and all this shit and the insurrection. And I'm like, dude, you could have cut the entire beginning and just started at the planet. And then Jor-El tells us everything we need to know right here.
You've waited 30 years to see this. You're getting all of it. And plus, I mean, it's Marlon Brando, man.
No, I'm saying Brando should be the one to deliver this and not the prologue that comes before the opening credits. I feel like start out with the credits. If you want to put the little recap montage in there, you can. Either way, we get everything right here. So we could easily just do regular-ass credits, Daily Planet, and here we go. Jor-El gives us everything.
Yeah, and they didn't want to pay Brando again for the Superman 2. That's why he's not in it.
Yeah, and there were even shots where they used doubles of Gene Hackman and others as well, because there was definitely a bit of a mutiny when Lester took over and the producers forced out Dick Donner because the cast and crew were very loyal to him.
Right. What were the demands that Brando had as far as like a huge amount of the box office draw?
That's interesting because I didn't know anyone ever did that before Nicholson. Him and George Lucas.
It was substantial, and they were just like, nope, we're not going to use you for the second one because we're not going to pay you again.
Which is only fair. I mean, if you're going to use his shit for the second movie, you got to get his fucking... I mean, frankly, without his involvement and Mario Puzo's attachment to it, that first movie would have never been made.
Most likely not, because no one knew who Christopher Reeve was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back at Niagara Falls, Lois offers to clean off Clark's glasses and gets a glimpse of him without them on. A dumbass kid is playing on the rail, but this time his mom pulls him back and scolds him for doing that. I don't think this was quite the same in the other one. Was it, Gramps?
All that was filmed, and it was actually used in the theatrical version.
I knew the whole glasses thing was, but I didn't remember there's previously a kid who gets pulled off the rail before the other kid.
No,
You know,
he
incites
did
the
it
whole thing.
once, and they pulled him off, and then
Okay.
he went back for more.
Okay. So when Clark goes to get her a hot dog and freshly squeezed orange juice, which at least we don't get the weird juicer and cigarettes in the office thing. That was very strange.
Gross.
That original dumbass kid jumps off the rail, falls off the rail. Superman flies into the rescue, and here one of the onlookers says, "What a nice man. Of course he's Jewish."
That had me in tears.
I love that. We cut briefly to Zod's walk-on-water arrival on planet Houston, and then Clark arriving in Lois's room to pick her up. Now, this is what we were talking about before, in that the hotel room is not the one we've seen. Also, they were staying together. So what's going on here? Well, this was their test footage prior to the first film. So they were really digging through the archives to complete this storyline.
And they look so much younger. I mean, it's years younger. And I really liked this scene because, one, it's a little bit more mature and it gives a little bit more plausibility to her suspecting that he's Superman. Her going, again, to another psycho extreme to prove her point versus him tripping over a bear head. I hated that where he tripped over the bear head and he
falls into the fireplace.
casually falls in. I mean, you know what? If someone fell into a fireplace and was just in it for a brief second, I mean, they may get a little singe and have a little bit of burn, but it wouldn't be enough for you to say, "You're Superman." No, she points a gun at him and pulls the trigger.
Yeah, she grills him about why Superman always appears when they're together, and then he's also never in the room at the exact same time. And then, yeah, she pulls a revolver out of the drawer and shoots him to prove her point.
She probably paid $20 for that gun.
Apparently that's the going rate.
Same guy from the Penguin. But he scolds her saying, you know, if you had been wrong, Clark Kent would have been killed. And I like that bullets are so insignificant to him that even us in the audience were looking like, well, where did he get shot? He couldn't even tell that he didn't get shot. And
No
she's
feel
like,
it.
well, they're blanks, dude.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, shit, you know. And we see later when Zod accidentally shoots himself with a shotgun when he's examining it, it was nothing to him. He didn't even feel it. So I like that we have both of those things for consistency in terms of like the bullets not even registering as a feeling.
I really like seeing
People get shot.
well, no,
Sorry.
I really like seeing the acting talent of Christopher Reeve where he can physically change from one character to the next, like literally
Yeah.
right in front of you. His whole face just changes and it's like, boom, he just turns into Superman right there. And you're like,
Look at my cheek muscles.
yeah, maybe that's what he does because his Clark is like the best. I mean, I like his Clark better than Cavill's Clark. I really appreciate his acting chops, you know, to be able to, in a split second, go from one to the other.
Yeah.
And not just physically, but also his demeanor and his voice projection and stuff like that. It's really cool to see.
And his hair.
Perfect.
I won't argue the Cavill thing because he's my favorite, but this is the blueprint for everything that came after it. So, you know, if there's someone who grew up on Bale or whatever their Batman is that they love, you know, I get it, but everything they're drawing on is what Keaton did first.
Well, it's just kind of the same way with the animated series. I mean, every Joker now sounds like Mark Hamill.
Except for, who's the guy in Under the Red Hood? Was it John DiMaggio who did that one? That was the one that I really liked as an exception because he didn't try to do Hamill, and they always try to do Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we cut back to the Kryptonians walking the river trail.
Kryptons.
Yeah, Kryptons. And Ursa killing the snake. And I like the way that this scene is broken up now. We're kind of cutting back and forth between our villains and our heroes here.
Well, what I wondered is she picks the snake up, it strikes her, and she acts like it hurts her.
Oh, that's true. It would have fucked up the snake.
I mean, maybe she was more shocked.
I guess we could say that perhaps because they're new to this atmosphere that they're still getting their powers to the full extent. I don't know. But yeah, Zod does get shot in the next scene.
The longer they're in the sun.
Same day. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good observation. Before they confront the sheriffs, they show us Superman and Lois's first date at the Fortress of Solitude. And in this version, he does not fly all over the world to get her flowers and food and all the stuff for the date. Those were rewrites.
He just had it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got some grape soda on ice and a bearskin rub waiting.
Zod takes over the news broadcast, as we've seen, just as the army approaches. And I was thinking, you got to be really close to a base if the army shows up this fucking quickly.
Especially so many people walking.
Right.
It's like, all right, how did they just show up there and you have one vehicle?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a clown car.
When he says, "Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?" it shows Superman and Lois cuddling in silver sheets.
It's impossible. Lois could never have Superman's baby. Do you think her fallopian tubes can handle his sperm? I guarantee he blows a load like a shotgun right through her back.
Any kind of normal sex, he'd have to have a kryptonite condom. And that would kill him.
You got to think about the physics of that.
Do you?
That's not this movie. It's another one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a Kevin Smith movie. When the Kryptonians fly to Washington, we see the first out-of-place CGI as the Washington Monument falls. This does look a little goofy. They do not, however, fly way across the country in the wrong direction to deface Mount Rushmore, so that's good. When Lois wakes up, Cal is speaking to the hologram of Jor-El, stating that he must become human if he truly insists on living his life with one. I still disagree with this logic, but I like how this scene is laid out much more clearly than the other version with Lana, his mom. You know, that shot of her like stepping out of the hologram into the real world. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is super weird.
See, and we get our first taste ever of how AI will screw everything up. It's not a pre-programmed recording. It's almost like he's talking to an AI version of his father. And his dad's like, oh, you want to be with her? Okay.
Well, got to get rid of your powers.
Got to get rid of your powers because you don't want to blow your load and kill her.
They should have written that in. I will say it's weirdly funny seeing Lois watch all of this from above in like an oversized Superman t-shirt.
Yeah.
From the gift shop.
At one point, Jor-El even glares at her upward, which is really funny. Now, I must also ask, how far is the range of his hearing, and does the Fortress of Solitude inhibit that in any way? Because Zod is fighting the army and all this shit's going on, and it's being broadcast all over the world. And then he's just like, man, we finally got to fuck. I guess I'm going to give away my whole entire identity.
I thought that was the point of the fortress, to kind of actually give him a place to decompress and get away and not have to.
And that would make perfect sense. I guess I was just asking because I'm not a real well-read Superman fan.
That's why it's called the Fortress of Solitude.
Well, I'll fuck myself then. After he sacrifices his powers, the whole place kind of explodes. And there's no follow-up scene like, gee, you did that for me? And, well, what do you want me to say? Just say that you love me, Clark. Like, that whole shit gone. Again, they don't have to spell every fucking thing out for you in this movie, which I like. And it also makes more sense because in the reshoots, you are, in a way, contradicting what happens a few minutes later when we go to the diner and there's the altercation, you know, because it's like...
Graham's favorite part.
I want the guy that I fell in love with. What are you talking about, right? But in the theatrical version, she was like, wow, you did all that for me, swoon, you know.
And he actually says...
Doesn't really make sense.
No, I did it for us.
When Zod takes the White House, it's very efficient here. The pace of the editing is wonderful in this action sequence.
Dude, that fight was like 10 times longer in the Donner cut. I mean, it was like a Rambo movie.
And it's just more effective in this version. Like, I think one of the things I love about it is the efficiency of this edit in general. You know, save the prologue that we had already talked about. I don't want to belabor that, but in much of the movie, we're getting all of the same information with way less screen time to do it.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's punk rock.
I'm still like, all right, the guy with the RPG didn't do anything, and you guys are still shooting bullets at these guys.
Right.
Are you
Also,
fucking kidding
who's
me?
shooting a fucking rocket launcher indoors in the White House? I did not appreciate before that Zod recognizes the president's decoy, because no man who leads so many would kneel so quickly, and then the real president immediately identifies himself and kneels.
Well, first he asks if it's going to save lives. That's
Well,
what
yeah.
a real leader would ask, and that's what Zod expected.
Right, but still, it was like 5 more seconds of resistance, and he's like, okay, I guess I will anyway.
And I love that the original Donner cut still has that classic line where, the president says, "Oh, God," and he's like, Zod.
Zod, yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Lois and Clark go to the diner, and he gets his ass kicked. And I still like this scene because aside from the kryptonite in the first movie, this is kind of the first he's really experienced of pain, and it's also the perfect setup for seeing Zod address the nation on TV. I do think that in general, this is a very well-written scene that's very just entertaining.
Now, I read somewhere that Donner is supposed to be one of the extras in the background.
Oh, really?
So, I was looking to see which one he was.
Well, at least it's not one of those James Cameron remasters where people are zooming in on the background and like, see, you could tell he used AI to upscale to 4K because watch this face morph into not a face anymore. And like the extras in the background and get all fucking goofy. So Luthor goes to the White House and pitches his plan to Zod. And Cal hitchhikes back to the fortress, finds the crystals blackened and destroyed. He calls out for Jor-El, but no one is there. He laments his failure and that no one is left to save them. Walking away defeated, he spots a single green crystal and manages to restore Jor-El one last time. I do think it's interesting, having also watched some side-by-sides after I watched the film last night, that it serves the exact same purpose, but they reshot him finding the one green shard of kryptonite.
And it's kind of a plot hole because in the theatrical version, it's his mother that he sees in the Fortress of Solitude. It's his mother that he talks to and that tells him that if he wants to live as a mortal, it has to be immortal and all that. It's his mother. But then when he finds where he goes up there to regain his power, he does the father.
Yeah.
He never talked to his father in this movie. So why is he yelling father?
What are you talking about?
In the theatrical version.
He does the father thing in the theatrical?
Yes.
We didn't even catch that before.
He does. It makes sense in the Donner cut, but not in this theatrical version. I was like, oh, you guys messed up.
Whoopsie.
So Jor-El is temporarily restored. Now he fucking steps out of the hologram into the real world and puts his hand on Cal's shoulder, turning him into some explosion of light. I still kind of like this better than the other one, but it's weird as fuck. In the theatrical, at least they set up the chamber.
Yeah.
I don't think either of the holograms should have been able to come to fucking life, first of all. And then, like, the second, why does him touching him when he's not even there do anything? Like, this is the most similar to bullshit Richard Lester comic book logic that Donner gives us, I think, in this whole movie of like,
well,
what the
I
fuck?
kind of liked it because, we have to think these Kryptons. Jor-El even says, I foresaw you making this mistake and I've planned, he's almost like Batman in a way. He's always prepared.
He had a fail-safe.
He had a fail-safe so that he knew Clark would mess up and realize how smart Jor-El is and accept the whole Kryptonian way and come back and be redeemed. And he even says the Kryptonian prophecy has come full circle.
Right.
The father will become the son will become the father, and the father will become the son. It's very
biblical,
religious, biblical
Amen.
type of thing. And
can I get an amen?
Superman is my Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Zod invades the Daily Planet with Luthor, and Superman shows up for the big fight. And again, also much more efficient. There's not the belabored, like, you promised us the son of Jor-El. And it's like, no, you got to use this little lady as the bait, and then he'll come running, and blah, blah, blah. No, Superman just fucking shows up. It's great. To the best of my memory, I think nearly all of this footage is in the theatrical version, including the backwards shot of the bystanders below. Remember I pointed that out? It's still in there.
I was legit looking for that, and I was like, oh, there it is.
I had to rewind it to find it, yeah. But we also have a couple differences. So there's an inserted close-up shot, which I think is a double wearing the S on his chest when they throw the bus at him, right? And he's coming, taking the car parts off of his chest or whatever. It's just a super close-up there. And I think there's also a voice overdub from someone else in the scene where him and Zod are first having their face-off.
I think you're right, because it sounded different. It was almost like
it's like
seeing
one line.
Cavill without
the CGI mustache.
CGI the mustache off of him, because I was like, that didn't sound like Reeve.
Yeah, I thought that was weird, and I also thought that if they couldn't get him, that scene would work just fine if Superman just stares at him like he does in the cut right after it. I was like, you don't really need a response in the same way of, like, I've criticized The Dark Knight Rises for, so you came here to die with your city. No, I came here to stop you. And like, okay, fuck, just, I know you wanted to write a scene, but like, just show us. We don't need all that.
Comic book shit.
You also get to see where they throw Superman into the flame of the Statue of Liberty. That wasn't in the theatrical version.
Oh, okay. This also coincides with Zod's breath attack on the angry mob. You know, once they bury Superman, all the fucking townspeople are coming with their pitchforks. And this play is much more serious and scary in this cut. Clearly the phone booth gag and the roller skates and all that shit was added in the reshoots. And I pointed out those things actually worked on me. I thought they were funny. But in this, you feel the danger a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of music in this scene when they're doing the wind on all these people. And I think sometimes the quiet parts are also really, really effective.
Yeah. This whole scene is a lot different than the theatrical version. We actually get to see Superman. He gets a couple more shots in. It's a lot more even fight, except whenever the Kryptonians start taking it out on the people, and Superman's like, I can't defeat, I'm putting these people at risk. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, and with Superman gone, Luthor leads these Kryptonians to his fortress. This does not have the weird fight scenes with the cellophane Superman emblem or the multiplicity Superman gag. But when Superman whispers to Luthor about the molecule chamber, I was wondering, how come in neither of these versions Zod can hear that?
Yeah.
The other thing I wondered is the Kryptonian DNA here what makes this work? Because reversing the chamber took away the powers of all of our villains, right? But Lois and Luthor are both out there as well. Would they have powers now? And now that I'm watching this again, I'm like, now I have more questions.
Ooh, that would
like
be
you could argue that they wouldn't because they
never had powers.
But if they were able to make Kal human Clark and then change him back, I kind of think you'd have a super Luthor and a super Lois.
Well, they'd at least get a good tan.
If you're yelling at your iPhone right now, I understand, because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm Joe Roganing right now. I'm just asking questions, guys.
We'll just stick to comic book shit. That's what it seems like, right? When you don't have an answer, it's like, you know what? They just wrote it in.
Like Evan would say, I'm just going to assume that I'm a dumbass and you guys know what you're doing. So he kills them all again anyway, right? We've seen this before. I know that we mentioned there's a deleted scene that says otherwise where they were apprehended, but that's never shown in either movies. And then he what's that? Blows up the fucking Fortress of Solitude. Him and
blows
Lois are
it up.
outside of it, blast that shit with the heat vision, and blows up the whole fucking thing.
Well, I'm also sitting there thinking, okay, he's not flying away with Lois, so did he leave Luther in there too and blow him up too?
They don't show where he went, but also, like, didn't you just learn your lesson? You took away your powers, you blew the whole fucking thing up, and then you had to go back there and salvage it because you actually did need it. And then immediately after, blow it up again. I'm like, what? You just rebuilt it.
Yeah, but this is also the same guy that got pussy once and fucking got rid of all his powers immediately.
This is
so
a guy.
He hasn't learned one thing.
This is a guy who gets his first girlfriend and quits the band because, like, man, I found Jesus now and I'm out. I'm sorry.
And you want to call him Superman?
He makes super mistakes.
Super dumb.
Super cum.
Super done.
Now, a sad score plays when Superman and Lois have one last kiss. He drops her off on her balcony again, which we haven't seen since the first film, and she cries when he flies away. This is short but sweet. I really like it. There's no triumphant song when he flies off. She knows they can never be together after all. Now, here it gets a little bit wonky. A double for Margot Kidder, filmed in the 2000s, begins to type a story in her room about everything that just happened. And we start to see the events going backwards. We cut to Perry brushing his teeth. We see shots from the film being played in reverse. The big Times Square Coca-Cola sign getting blown up, or the prisoners getting released from the Phantom Zone, all these things happening in reverse. And then we cut out to space. We see Superman flying around the Earth backwards, and he's turning back time again.
So, by flying backwards, not only is he reversing Earth's time, but he's reversing outer space time because the Phantom Zone was in outer space.
Yeah.
I did not like that ending.
Yeah, it basically undoes the whole plot. I am really forgiving about the ending because, again, they shot most of these at the exact same time, these two films, and as they were working on it, decided, you know what, that would be a more effective ending for this first one. Let's go ahead and do that. And, you can get into the nitty-gritty about it, like, obviously turning the Earth backwards isn't going to do it. I think it's made to illustrate he's like doing the Flash thing where it's like, okay, you're going speed of light and, breaking space-time and all that shit, but, like, it made sense if you just show him spinning around the world, it's going to, the audience is going to get what's happening. But I think because this was the scripted ending for number 2, and they never got to finish shooting number 2, it really doesn't bother me. This is a gift of something that you never got to see the light of day. It never got finished, So I don't really have any issues with this being used again because it's technically the first time,
Yeah, and I knew that the Donner cut had this specific type of ending. It always intrigued me how, like you said, they filmed these movies simultaneously. And I've read where, all the scenes that were in the Daily Planet, they would film one scene one day, stay on the same set, and film for Superman 2. And because they wanted that consistency with how the actors looked and the whole set and stuff like that.
Imagine taking all of that time and care and then just firing that fucking guy.
And then when they had to do the rewrites and reshoots, if you look real close, you could tell the people don't look exactly the same. They've added a little weight. Margot Kidder looks a little older. Even Reeves looks a little fuller. And it was just kind of interesting to see. This shows how they actually chopped up and changed the writing and the filming of first movie 2.
Yeah, definitely. You can see, like, okay, this is how it was conceptualized.
So it's almost like Donner originally was wanting to film, like, basically a 4-hour movie.
Yeah,
and have 2 chapters. And then he got to film, what they say, about 70% of
they were pretty far.
Episode 2. And then Lester came in and rewrote a lot of stuff, reshot a lot of stuff so that he could get the credit for
DGA
being
credit. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a shame, man. And it's, again, like the first of many in a long line of DC Warner Brothers collaborations where this seems to happen, whether that's Dick Donner, Tim Burton, Zack Snyder, Christina Hodson with Batgirl and so on. It never ends. Or speaking of Cavill, coming back as Superman, and then, oh, no, just kidding. It never ends. It sucks, but that's the business. Now, in the epilogue here, we're at the planet, and this is all different footage from the theatrical. Perry and Lois both seem a little off, but they have no real memory of why or what happened. And there's a brief exchange where she sends out Clark for pizza, and there's no amnesia kiss. There's no flag-waving epilogue with the president, none of that. And we cut to Clark's rematch with the bully at the diner, which is unchanged as far as I can tell. He throws the guy down the counter, flies off heroically then as Superman somehow. Now, again, if this was a modern film, that would be the post-credits scene, and I think it would be more appropriate there, probably. Additionally, the time travel solution to the climax makes it so none of those people would even recognize him. Because none of that happened.
That is true.
I won't take credit for that. Actually, a YouTuber had pointed that out, and I was like, you fucking genius. You're right.
You're exactly right.
It's definitely a messy third act, and that's kind of to be expected with a movie that never got finished. But that's how we wrap up.
Did you watch the deleted scene where Jimmy is showing him his new camera, and then Clark presses the elevator door, and as he is prone to do when he's Clark Kent, he bumps into somebody coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this bald-headed guy that has like a mustache.
Huge
Looks like
mustache.
He's a strong guy. At first, I thought he was like the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, same. That's what I thought.
I was like, is that the Iron Sheik?
Yeah.
But somebody said that is the same guy that is the Joker's henchman that has like the boombox in '89 Batman.
Oh, weird.
And I was like, oh,
Lawrence?
my God. I got to looking. I was like, that's a very strong possibility.
Yeah, 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
I think I found Donner on that scene you like, but it's at the end.
Oh, really?
Oh, in the background?
Yeah, he's in the background. He's right when Clark squeezes the guy's hand and does everything. If you look, like one of the scenes, it's just everyone in the diner. He's the last guy on the far right.
Oh, funny.
It's been driving me nuts. I'm like, he's here? I had to find him. And I'm like looking at a picture of him.
He's not saying shit because he's scrolling the screen back there, scrubbing frame by frame.
Trying to find him. I'm going to take a picture and send it to you guys.
Well, if that really is him, then he gets the last laugh because he would have actually been in the Lester film.
True. All right. Well, I've been told by Ben Polanski he wants to hear more from Dunk on these episodes. So,
oh boy,
he's just telling me I talk too much.
No.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
I talk too much. I want to give you the floor when we go to our pros section here. What did you like about the Donner cut?
So you pointed out a lot of great things about the Donner cut, like a lot of straight to the point. I hate wasting time when it comes to watching these movies and all this extra filler stuff that really doesn't correlate to anything that has any substance. So it's very straight to the point. This was so much easier to watch because it kept my attention span.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to walk through the park and hold hands and we're going to tell each other stories about when we were kids. No, it's like, all right, we're going to beat some people up over here. We're going to go over here. We just had sex. Now we're going to go back over here and this is happening. And it's like, great. Bam, 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 bam. So a lot of bam, apparently. But nothing seemed like it was a waste. Every scene actually meant a little something. I didn't feel that I needed to fast forward.
Yeah, much better pacing, and I think that's kind of innate with a lot of sequels. We talked about the first one being such an iconic classic film, but I don't go back to it too often because there's like an hour of backstory before we get to Supermaning, One of the reasons I really enjoy rewatching this, even after just watching the theatrical, is like, man, there's still just so much going on, and it keeps it moving, and it's really just fun to watch.
Except, as you mentioned earlier, the beginning and then having to repeat the story again.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, why did I have to like go through that twice?
Yeah, I think this is maybe 20 minutes shorter than the original film. And then if you were to also trim off the prologue, this would be a really brisk and fast-paced movie.
Yeah, that was the best part about it for me. And it didn't take away from the film. I feel like it added to it. It was just quick. It was great.
Yeah, somehow we get more with less, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you don't have to add all the extra filler stuff.
Gramps, what do you got for pros? Is there anything we didn't touch on or that you want to piggyback on?
Well, like we discussed, I like the fact that this movie makes the results and consequences of part one carry over into part two, specifically with Lex Luthor's nuclear bomb, setting up the Kryptonians coming from the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
I like Jor-El is in the Fortress of Solitude. He's the AI that Superman talks to, and it makes more sense when he goes, "Father!"
Right.
Instead of the theatrical version where he's not even there. It was a little bit more serious tone. Wasn't as campy, which those parts work and serve their purpose well in the theatrical cut, but it's almost like sometimes it feels a little forced.
Yeah, I think this one's more consistent.
Yeah, and I like that Lois, she's figured it out. The first scene where she jumps out of the building, that's just crazy. I mean, that's just crazy.
I'm on board. I like it.
Shooting him with the gun versus him falling in the fire and, oh, your hand's not burnt. You've got to be Superman.
But, dude, check it out. So we get the gunshot sequence instead of that fireplace scene, but also instead of that prolonged river scene. Like that added a lot to the runtime, which, you know, we're like, oh my God, he's just running down the side of the river like, oh, Lois, you know, and he fucking knocks off the branch for her and shit. It's like, okay, that's entertaining to watch, but like, really does it, again, they do so much more with so much less. We get the window thing, which is right to the point. There's no debate or argument. That just fucking happens right out of the beginning. And then we get the gunshot thing, which, again, no debate. She just fucking shoots him. Happens. Like, we get all the information, man.
And because I just watched the theatrical version before we jumped on, I noticed this. When Clark comes in the morning, you know, he's la-da-da. He's acting like he doesn't know anything. Perry tells him, Clark, I need this story because these terrorists are taking over the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And they're threatening to blow up with a hydrogen bomb. And he asks, well, where's Lois? And he goes, she's right there in it. And he goes, why would you send her there? Why would you send anyone near a hydrogen bomb? That just did not make any sense to me whatsoever. So we don't have to deal with Paris, and I love that. We don't have to deal with the
especially after the Olympics
honeymoon suite scene where the guy.
There's no Australian breakdancers here.
Yeah, we don't have to deal with the honeymoon suite where he's like, here's the fire of love, and here's the shaking bed. Now give me a tip, and
that's very Dumb and Dumber. The whole thing.
We also miss out on that one scene where she finally finds out, and that really like slow walk, and you see his shoulders like get bigger, and it's like, oh my God, he does look like Superman. And it's like that was like a 2-minute scene that we're not getting either.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
Good one.
Oh, that's terrific.
Exactly. Sorry, I said thank God, thank Zod.
So
thank Zod. Oh yeah, let's start saying that.
Thank Zod, yeah.
Thanks, Zod.
Yeah, that's got to be a thing on the show now. Oh, man, thank Zod for this. Yes. Hashtag thank Zod.
Zod we trust.
That's a little too close to like Zod did nothing wrong, though. I don't know about in Zod we trust. That's
in the Metropolis fight scene, it's a little bit more of a fight sequence. Superman gets a little bit more shots. He definitely exposes that Zod really isn't much of a fighter. He relies on Non and Ursa to kind of be his minions because Superman spins him around and around and throws him in the Coke sign. You can kind of see that Zod's like, oh, well, he's a little embarrassed, you know, and I like that. And of course, it still has my favorite scene, probably in movie history, where Superman gets his ass kicked. So, yeah, those are my pros.
All right, so I'll just add a little bit to this. We talked about the pacing. We talked about the consistency of tone. Last thing I want to say is that the 4K restoration looks fantastic. This footage looks really clean, really nice, and the original Superman looks great at times, but a lot of the Smallville stuff, it's kind of hazy and it's not, super clear. And this movie looks great start to finish. Again, a couple of VFX shots and weird things that happened because it was a work in progress, and they had to, on limited time and budget, finish those certain shots. But overall, I think it just looks fantastic as well. Cons. I'm going to kick it off here and continue. Pretty much all of my egregious, what the fuck is happening moments were reshoots. Almost all of them were from the reshoots. Like anything that stood out as just totally nonsense was shit that they added after the fact. This movie has almost none of that. The prolonged recap at the beginning, we talked about that. It doesn't necessarily need to, but it doesn't quite have the heart of the first movie. And, the emotional core of, losing Jonathan Kent or some of these things, or like Lois dying at the end and his fucking raw, rage moment. Like, we don't have any of that real emotional stuff in this movie. And then some of the campier elements don't fit as well. When we're doing the whole prison Luthor and Otis stuff, it's like, whoa. As opposed to in the first movie, Luthor doesn't show up for like 45 minutes or whatever it is. Otis has got that tuba theme song as he's walking across the street, and I can't help but laugh at this. But there's something about the hot air balloon and the prison and all this stuff that felt a little bit off this time.
I'm pretty much on the same boat as you. Instead of repeating all the recap of the last movie,
yeah,
I hate when things get repetitive. I'm just like, why? You told me that once already. Yeah, I'm supposed to be paying attention. But that's about it, really. I like the fact that it was shorter again, but we're not talking about what I like. We're talking about what I dislike. It is a comic book movie, so those what the F is going on moments, it's like, all right, Dave, remember, it's a comic book. Back then when comic books were written, there was a lot of that, and I have to accept that.
It's written in the 70s.
Yeah, it's what they did. Science wasn't up to date the way it is right now.
People aren't as nitpicky back then.
Yeah,
there's no Reddit.
There's
no IMDb.
No one has everything we have right now, so I have to accept the fact that in 81, this is what it was, and this was phenomenal back then.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what I got.
Cool.
He's ready.
How did Lex Luthor grow a full head of hair in one movie?
He had wigs in the first movie.
Did he have wigs? Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about the theatrical version was more Ursa time. I did appreciate how in the theatrical version they set up the small town takeover a little bit better. They have the small town cops approach him on the dirt road and they get easily taken over. And then the Kryptonians show up in this small town and they walk into this bar and there's the two guys that are arm wrestling. She sits down and arm wrestles the guy and
that's very
throws
Back
him
to
across.
the Future 3.
Yeah. It was written in just for the purpose of kind of establishing a little bit more comedic element, but also showing, this is their first time really interacting with humans on this planet and how they see us as ants.
Right.
And they're just toying with them. And I really like that scene. But as far as overall cons, like you said, the setup in the very beginning takes a long time for us to get there. You've waited 30 years to see this, so that's not much of a complaint.
On rewatches, dude, I'm thinking about it, and the skip button exists, and I'm going to try next time, just be like, all right, we're going to start at the opening credits. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you. I really didn't know there was an alternate version until here recently. I really wish that they had the budget to really do all the effects the right way. You know, because there's sometimes where it looks like it's done on early CGI.
Yeah, 90s CGI.
Yeah.
Like, to think that this came out after the first two Spider-Man movies is like, eek.
Yeah.
But they didn't have that Sam Raimi money, so.
No, they didn't give them much of a budget at all. They were pretty much like, we're doing you a favor.
Exactly.
Just the time it took for us to even find this footage.
And I think part of this getting finished again ties into Superman Returns, because not only did they get to work with John Williams, but they got the rights to use Marlon Brando. And so part of that whole process was like, well, fuck, okay, we finally got this shit ironed out.
Did you see where they talked about when they found all the film? You know, that film absorbs moisture.
Oh,
they
right.
bake the film.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy, the lengths they have to go to salvage this stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's some movies where there was like studio fires and archives got destroyed, and they're working from copies of copies and shit like that. Like, it's pretty crazy. Some of that history is just gone.
I forgot to say on my pros, I liked how they eliminated some of the goofy powers that they had in the rewrites, like the finger lasers and the whole magic chest shield. And the amnesia kiss, that was all stupid.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant. Of like all my little, what the fuck? You know, all that shit was in the other version. Very little of it was here, you know.
Yeah.
Aside from the living hologram thing, there's not a lot of those for me.
Yeah. I think there's more pros than cons for me.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to kick off the rating. I'm not sure what I rated the other ones. I'm just judging this by my experience today, but I had a good time with it. Has very few issues considering, you know, how this was restored and brought to life, and I give it a 4 out of 5.
Strong.
Yeah. Having watched this movie 3 times and still really had a good time. When I was taking my notes yesterday, it was, no complaints.
Speaking of which, one thing I didn't add that I had on my notes, the downtown fighting scene with the bus and everything, I was just like, wow, Marlboro cigarettes. Wow, Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Marlboro only paid $40,000 to have their stuff all over this damn movie.
Forever. But also inflation. So $40,000 in 1980s. Probably a hell of a lot more now.
But everyone was smoking cigarettes. They were crushing it.
Well, look at Lois. She was, that's...
Yeah. She's in the office just
constantly.
freaking... Yeah, Superman would show up. Trust me.
Which is funny because in the first movie, Superman is like, you know, you really shouldn't smoke, Lois. It's really bad for your lungs. And then in the second movie, they're like, give us that money, though.
Yeah, keep on smoking. Here we go, Superman.
As long as I drink orange juice.
Yeah, it'll balance it out. Oh, God, I'm so glad that the repetitive orange juice subplot was cut.
Oh, freshly squeezed.
They ran that into the fucking ground.
They got rid of so much of the fat.
Anyway, ratings.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit right there with you, Sam. Strong 4. Got rid of so much of the fat. And, you know, the only reason I won't go any higher is because this is not going to be the bar, right?
No, I don't think this is like a perfect movie or a benchmark or anything, but like, boy, is it watchable.
And I technically watched it 3 times, right? So I watched it yesterday. I watched it before this, and I'm kind of watching it now at the same time as we're recording this episode. So 3 times in less than 24 hours. It's a pretty solid film.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. We know Gramps grades on a Polanski scale, so let's not put any pressure on him because we know it's going to be different. So how are you feeling?
Well, I think I told you when we reviewed the first theatrical cut that Superman 2 was my favorite of the series. And a large part of that was because I like Zod and the Kryptonians. You know, I thought that was a cool element.
I thought you liked the orange juice thing.
And I like the ass kick scene. And
one more time. I think you like the ass kick scene.
Yeah.
I kept thinking it was the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's the porn parody with the Eiffel Tower. Got it. Okay.
I guarantee you there was an inside joke with the Eiffel Tower with the rocket shooting out the top of the Eiffel Tower, blowing out the top.
Like an Austin Powers cut.
They were like,
God.
let's throw in this double entendre joke.
Or as Polanski would say, entendre.
Entendre.
Yes, Eric Entendre.
And like I said, I didn't even know there was this alternate version. It almost seems like to me like I love when bands will release kind of a deluxe version years later that includes the demos. I love listening to demos. I like listening to the process. I like getting the bones and the foundations. I love that stuff. It's like an archive history of how it evolves into this final product. I love that. That's kind of what this is to me. This is like the demo version of whatever the final theatrical version was. But
Totally.
I don't know what I gave the rating on the other one, but I'll give this one a notch of 0.5 higher.
Well, that's really ambiguous because...
Well, that's what I don't remember what I gave it. I think maybe a 3, so 3.5. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. If that feels good to you, that's fine.
I don't remember. I wish we could have listened back to whatever I gave the rating for.
I thought about it too, and then there have been other times where I'll write a rating in my notes, and then as our discussion brings other things to light, I might rate it higher or lower than what I had
adding and
written.
Subtracting the whole time.
Yeah. You know, I could glance at my old notes, but I don't even know if that'd be what I said, you know. But yeah, I think overall we had a good time with it. We're not going to go through the other Richard Lester sequels here, but I want to do Superman Returns as well as Man of Steel, since we've gone through so many Batman films, and Superman Returns is written as a sequel to this movie.
Superman Returns. Wow, I haven't seen that since, I don't know, I was probably 5.
5?
It's a child support bill is what it is. That's what they should have named it.
Okay, we'll get to it when we get there.
I remember having one of the most intense Superman-esque scenes ever presented on film.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can't wait to dive into that one.
Looking forward to it.
All right, that is our show. Thank you guys for your patience and for your impatient ass who's listening to this at 2 times speed. Dave, I'm talking to you. I don't spend hours and hours and days and weeks editing these episodes half a second at a time to shave 20 minutes of shit off there to make the most perfectly paced, bite-sized episode just for you to listen on fast forward. You got that? Okay, so hey, if you like it, give us the rating and the stars and the blah, 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 blah. We will be back with comic books, and this time it's not a villain, it's a Batman marquee title, okay? This is the slept-on classic, the follow-up to the Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli. That's right, it will be Batman Year 2. Stay tuned.